Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, welcome back to the channel. Today we're going to be looking at the NBA slate. We got a four-gamer today on January 22nd, 2019. If this is your first time to the channel, and it might be because I've only ever done one basketball video before, primarily making football content for DFS, also getting into the sports betting realm. But now that football's kind of over. I know that we got the biggest game yet to come, the Super Bowl, but I'm getting more into the NBA space. It's going to be a little more difficult to do these NBA slates because they're obviously day by day, so it takes a lot more work to put them out there. So I'm going to try and get around 2 or 3 a week of NBA slates out. I'm going to be having strategy videos out as well until I can get up and be live streaming for you guys as soon as possible. That'd be ideal. I can do every single slate then instead of having to record it, research for it, edit it, all that stuff. My laptop takes 2 hours to upload. The videos would be out by like 3 or 4 on some days when I have other obligations, and that's just not going to cut it when the games start at 7. It's going to be tough. So we have a 4-game slate today, a little easy to digest compared to yesterday's slate. Bunch of different things going on sites yesterday. Just different slates, right? Draftkings having like 3 or 4 big different slates with 6 figures on the line. FanDuel having their whatever millionaire or whatever lineup, if you hit the perfect lineup, whatever it might be. Nobody even got close. So we're going to get into this. If this is your first time here, I just want to introduce myself. My name is Sal, and I'd appreciate it if you consider subscribing. If you like DFS, if you like sports in general, sports betting, please subscribe to the channel. It helps me a ton, not only for YouTube, but also just trying to make this hobby into a career and get noticed by others who can potentially help me do that. So let's jump into this slate right here. And I've digested it a little bit, right? I mean, it's 9 a.m. here on the East Coast, and I'm just trying to digest as much as I can with the information that I do have. So I'll slide over to a spreadsheet right here where I just have some injury news, and it's not filled out to the fullest, but if you're seeing this right now, I mean, obviously the guys that are the biggest names are the ones that I put in here, are the ones that at least are worth noting in here. So obviously DeAndre Ayton, he seems doubtful again. If Ayton's out, we saw what Bender did the other night, having over 30 points. A guy like Richard Holmes, if he's out as well, then it's kind of fire up Richard or Bender probably, right? There's also Quincy Acey. We'll get into all that stuff, but these are just the injuries that I'll cover. Gallinari's out. Lou Williams is questionable. That's going to be a big one as well. So we have the centers for, again, the Suns. This is just like the slate 2 days ago. Centers for the Suns and Lou Williams. They're going to be the big news today, right? Outside of that, maybe Leonard. Leonard's had 2 days of rest in a row. Is there something else going on there? I don't think so, but we'll have to just monitor that, make sure he's playing. If not, there's obviously players who are going to see a boost there, like Kyle Lowry, like some guys out there, Siakam, whoever it might be, Serge Ibaka. So Dennis Smith Jr. is supposed to be returning to the team today. I don't know if that means he's going to be playing, but he says he's coming back to the team. I'd imagine he's going to be playing if that's the case, but again, monitor that. So there's really just 2 big things today, Lou Williams and what's going to be going on with these centers. Monitor Kawhi Leonard, monitor Smith. And obviously it's the NBA, so you have to literally be sitting at your thing. Like last night, Joel Embiid starting news dropped about 5 minutes before, and then he goes for over 60 plus in 3 quarters. So you got to be watching that stuff last second. If you're somebody who's going to be setting your lineups around noon or 1 or whenever you're watching this, 4 o'clock, and then not look at them again, you might get lucky and win money that night, but odds are something's going to change, and if it doesn't change that night, over the long term, that's not going to be a pretty good strategy for you. So those are the key injuries. I'll just slide over to Vegas here, and before we get into the salaries on DraftKings. And I mean, the main things on Vegas is that these are all pretty decently scoring games, right? They're all over a 220 total. You have some teams, if you go to just specific teams totals, and these are just target teams I have in here, obviously just going to be targeting, at least for me on this smaller game slate, the higher totals, and it's tough when they're all so similar, right? But we could see here we have 116, and basically 117 for the Wolves, around 120 for the Raptors, and around 117 for the Thunder. Implied points total, those are pretty big totals. So something to definitely keep in mind when you're building your lineups, and I know a lot of you guys watching this is to keep in mind Vegas. It's kind of drawn out at this point because everybody knows that Vegas is pretty correlated with DFS in terms of if there's going to be more points in a Vegas game and they're predicting that, then there's going to be more points for players in those games DFS-wise, right? There's going to be more assists, there's going to be more opportunities for rebounds, so you want to target those games that have, I don't know, if we go back to that, in terms of totals, yeah, they're all pretty close, right? But 224 total basically for the Mavs compared to a 229, that's a 5-point swing. Somebody's going to be scoring 5 more points. That means there's going to be a few more rebounds, possibly a few more assists, whatever it might be, steals. There's potential for a player, if there's a 5-point difference, to get an extra 5 to 10 points in that game, right? So that's something that you always want to keep in mind, and it's something that's obviously known by much of the DFS community right now, but it's something that shouldn't be just said, oh, everybody's doing it, I shouldn't do it. No, that's something that you have to incorporate into your game for sure. So, I mean, if we want to look at some players and salary-wise, something that I always take into account is pace. And before I just get into that, I guess I'll hop into pace as well. So these are just spreadsheets that I make quickly. They're nothing fancy. I have some other spreadsheets that I'm working on to try and make this all a little bit easier on myself. But, I mean, in terms of pace, we have the 4 games here. I get this from Hollinger's Stats. It's a great site. I can link it up below. But the paces are all pretty similar, right? And the thing that you want to look at for pace is what's going to be the highest pace. And it's just basically possessions per game. So on average, the projected game pace for this game is going to be about 105, a little over 105, 109 possessions per team, right? So you can multiply these numbers by 2, and that's how you'll get the total possessions or whatever it might be. So that's team pace right here. The highest ones are right around 108, 109, and that's where we're going to see the Kings Raptors, who also have a high total. That's where we're going to see Thunder Blazers, who also have a high total on this slate. So these are really the 2 games that I'm going to be targeting, but it's not like I'm going to exclude players from the other games because it's a small slate. You kind of have to pick and choose a couple players here and there because evidently one person is going to have a good game in those types of games, and you're probably going to have them on a smaller slate. So, I mean, this is just something that I keep in mind just to try and build out some things. We get into target offenses. These are just the ranks. I could blow this up a little bit. These are just the ranks per teams. I get this from a couple of different sites. Hashtag basketball is really good. It's just the ranks by position, defense by position. How do the Suns defend the center? We know they defend them pretty badly, 28th. How do the Clippers defend the shooting guard? They're pretty decent at 11th, but they're nothing spectacular. These are just things that I highlight to look at and stuff that you should be incorporating in to know, are you playing a value play? Is he actually a value if he's going up against, I don't know, the number 3 defense in the Raptors at shooting guard? Maybe he is based on his price, but that's something you have to take into account. So just things that I always do. This is the first time I'm doing NBA, so I'm kind of highlighting over that stuff. But that's kind of how I do it. Then I kind of just make some players of interest. And again, you could pause the screen right now and look at the players of interest, but none of them are going to stick there. That's just me based on pace, based on game totals, based on teams that I want to target, and the defense versus position. Some players that I put in there originally based on injuries as well. Again, it's 9 a.m. Those things are going to change throughout the day, closer to 10 a.m. now. But those things are going to change throughout the day without a doubt. So we can get into the positions now. I mean, you got Russ Westbrook, most expensive player on the slate, deservingly so, a little more than Karl Anthony Towns. And Russ Westbrook, I mean, he is what he is, right? He has an insane usage rate in terms of just having the ball in his hands, being accountable for plays, whether they're through assists, whether they're through rebounds, whatever it might be, point scoring. I mean, point scoring is positively the most directly correlated with DFS, right? Makes sense. You score in there in a game, you score in DFS. So he's kind of had a couple of games now where he hasn't met value, right? Under 40 points. At this point, he has to get you close to 60 for you to feel comfortable here. He has to get you 55, right, for if you want to 5x your value and get to that 300-point total. But with the slate that we're working with, we might not be able to get 5x value from some of our value guys, depending on where you go. You're going to have to rely on Russ Westbrook to do something like this, right? He's going to have to go for 60, which, again, is probably in his range of outcomes 50% of the time. I like Russ Westbrook on this slate. If we want to go over and quickly just look at his matchup here, and obviously he's kind of matchup proof, but if you want to take a look at the matchup, I mean, it's a tough matchup, right? Number 2 against the point guard position. So definitely something that I want to look into a little bit more as the day goes on is Russ Westbrook. But let's keep sliding. This is unique because the last time that Karl Anthony Towns took the floor, it was against the Phoenix Suns, right? He was at the exact same price. I had to like triple look at all this stuff because I was like, is this for real? He was at the exact same price, and it seems like DeAndre Ayton's not going to play again, or Richard Holmes, or Rashawn Holmes, whatever his name is, he is questionable as well. So if this ends up being the exact same situation where you're going to be putting Bender and a Quincy Acey, who hasn't even been in the league for like 2 weeks or whatever it is, on Karl Anthony Towns again, this very well could be the outcome. Now, keep in mind, this game had a little bit more of a shootout or higher than the total, right? It kind of blew out that total a little bit, went for, 240 there. So keep that in mind as well. Actually, 230, so it didn't absolutely shoot it out. So 39 minutes, Karl Anthony Towns should be a stud in this game. His matchup's just absolutely unreal. The Suns are 28th in the league, probably trending downward in that category as well. Defending the center position, Karl Anthony Towns, a top 3 center in the league, absolute monster. And he had this matchup 2 nights ago, and he smashed, right? Thing to keep in mind for tournaments, cash, he's a lock. I think you insert Karl Anthony Towns probably over Russ Westbrook if Ayton's out and if Holmes is out. But even if Holmes is in, I think he's still in a great position. Even if an Ayton was in, Ayton's not some defensive star. It's just a lot better when you're putting guys out there like a Bender and whoever else, right? So Karl-Anthony Towns, exact same position as he was 2 nights ago for the most part. We'll monitor that throughout the day. If indeed he is in that exact same position with those guys being out, I think it's tough to go away from him in this spot based on recency bias is a bad thing, but in basketball it's a little bit better because there's such a bigger sample size, because guys aren't playing once a week. They can stay in those grooves. They can actually hit their trends going upwards or downwards. So I think Karl-Anthony Towns is in a great position. I don't think there's any reason to run away from him besides potentially ownership, but we don't know what that's going to look like, at least right now. I don't. So let's keep going here. I'll try and break this down by position instead of naming every player and being here for 3 hours to make this pretty quick, and I'll just look at some guys that I'm highlighting over. Point guard position, we already talked on Westbrook. Lowry, if for some reason Leonard's out again, Lowry, we know his splits there. He's scoring at least like 30 points in every game that Leonard's off the floor, and that's kind of like a floor for him. At 7,600, you obviously need more than 30. You're going to need more, closer to 40, but he's been able to do that as well with Leonard out off the court. I mean, he did it a couple of games ago, right? So Lowry, if Leonard's out, is a great play. If he's in, I think there's better value at the point guard position or going up to Westbrook, right? Lou Williams, this is going to be the most interesting one right here. So if Lou Williams is in, I kind of like Lou Williams a lot. Dallas struggles against the point guard position, guarding it. They might get Dennis Smith Jr. back today. I'm not sure if that matters at all in terms of defending Lou Williams. I think if Lou Williams is in, he's a guy I want to play. I think he's going to have suppressed ownership because he'll probably keep that question tag close to that 8:30 start, right? So if you can have a pivot option later in the day, which there are some in that Minnesota game, there's also some in terms of Lou Williams' backup plays. I think he's a good play. I think he's a really good play. Derrick Rose, absolute monster, just still sees minutes at 6,300. His price actually came down after throwing up a 40-burger. I think Derrick Rose, again, is in a good situation. I don't think Devin Booker can guard him. If he starts at shooting guard, I don't think they're going to be able to guard him there either, whoever it might be. I think Derrick Rose is in a great spot here. I do like Derrick Rose. Point guard, when I was talking about value, I think Jeff Teague's very, very interesting here. Obviously, Derrick Rose has been playing great. Derrick Rose, for similar price at $6,300, $400 more, is going to be the guy who actually probably sees greater ownership, especially because of what he's done lately. But I think Teague's in a very interesting buy low spot at $5,900. Still seeing minutes out there, right? Maybe not as much as Rose has, but he's still seeing minutes and the starts. Very interesting buy low spot for a guy who can do this, right? He can do this 40 points if he gets closer to those 30 minutes. At $5,900 on the slate like this, if you want to differentiate yourself somewhere, I think Teague's in a very good spot, good matchup, and that's that value I'm talking about at point guard. I do like it a lot. Outside of that, I mean, I'll just mention Gilgeous-Alexander. If Williams is out, obviously he was a bust at super chalk. I think like 70% owned chalk. The last time he went out there on that smaller slate, he just completely busted after a good game. But at 4,600, you still don't need much out of him. You need mid-20s to feel really good about yourself. So if Lou Williams is out, I'd probably fire him up again, or at least consider it, right? That's all I'll highlight over here. I know Pat Bev, I think, went for 50, right? In his last time out, that's just absolutely nuts. Pat Bev went for 50, but, I mean, he played 42 minutes, an unreal 42 minutes in a regular season game. Something that I don't think is going to be happening again, even if Williams is out. It's going to regress closer to this. People are going to jump on this a lot. So if Pat Bev sees inflated ownership at 4,800, which is rightfully so, I'll probably fade him for other options, but he does provide value. I think I go back to Alexander, though, here. Shooting guard, if I want to highlight over this, I think my favorite play at shooting guard on this slate is Buddy Hield. Buddy Hield has a good matchup, but for some reason, the only position that they kind of struggle Toronto defending is the small forward. That's where Buddy Hield's been drawing his starts. At his price, I think he's a value. At $7,000, he needs to get you 35 to meet value and around 40 for you to feel really good about playing him. And that's something that he's been, I don't know, in his range of outcomes, maybe a third of the time. I do feel comfortable playing him, especially based on the matchup. The only issue, and you don't want to predict blowouts, but this is a double-digit spread. Buddy Hield could be a guy that's not seeing the floor in the fourth quarter if things get out of hand. Monitor the status, again, of Kawhi Leonard. That actually really impacts a play of Buddy Hield. Some other guys, and I think Derrick Rose is a smart play to throw into the shooting guard spot because there's not a lot of plays at shooting guard. Devin Booker's a guy I always shy away from just because he's very much a one-trick pony, at least in my opinion. Yeah, he can score 40 to 50 points, but if he's scoring you 30 points, okay, if he's getting you 43, that's pretty good, but at his price range, he has to get you that at 8,300, right? In terms of being able to get bonuses and things like that, double-doubles, it's just tough for him. The point guard position, though, he's just sort of like a a shoot first type ball hog, not a pass first. So 8,300, it's just a little much for me on this slate. Derrick Rose, I do like if you play him in the shooting guard position. Andrew Wiggins, as long as Covington out, I think Andrew Wiggins is a very interesting buy low spot. He continues to see his salary drop, and now basically in a week or so, not even 10 days, it's dropped $1,200. This is the exact situation you're looking for. Guys who are trending downward, who still have talent, who are in good situations, who are seeing this insane minutes usage, and they're just shooting like this, 3 of 14, right? 4 of 14. They're in slumps, 7 of 21. I mean, he's a good player. He's going to come out of that. He's trending downward because he did this to increase his salary, 60 points, and since then it's just gone down every single game for the most part. I like Wiggins as a buy low option here. I like him a lot, actually. Outside of that, I mean, Wesley Matthews at 4,400, he's just too cheap. But again, if he hits value for you, he's still only getting you 20 points on this type of slate. You're going to need all your guys to probably get you around that 25-point mark. I think Wesley Matthews can do that, though. He is seeing minutes. I think he's way too cheap. He's definitely an interesting play for sure. And that's all I'll touch on from this part of it. I actually will touch on Oubre. I was going to touch on him at small forward because he's got that eligibility. All right, so we're here. Paul George is just somebody, obviously he's a beast, but I think on this slate, maybe I fit him in there, but if I'm going to be going with Towns, I don't know if I can. We'll have to see what value opens up with those Phoenix guys, of course, and also what happens in LA. So Tobias Harris, it's $8,000. I love him if Lou Williams is out. If Lou Williams is out, it's probably going to be Towns and Tobias Harris to start a lot of my lineups. His usage is just insane with Lou Williams out. Look at these minutes being played. They just don't have many other bodies back there, right? I mean, they have Gallinari already ruled out, Lou Williams out. They have some other injuries on this team. These guys are just forced to play minutes, and he's probably their best player on the entire season. Tobias Harris is becoming a stud, more of a stud this year. I love him at $8,000. We talked about Hield. We talked about Wiggins. We talked about, well, we didn't talk about Oubre. Oubre's a guy that I think, based on his eligibility, wherever you want to play him, he's just been great. With 8 and off the floor and his limited minutes being on this team, he's the guy who sees the biggest usage bump. I think it's only like 2 or 3%, but he is still seeing that bump. Outside of Devin Booker, of course. And he's been consistent, right? At his price of $5,600, I think he's undervalued, right? I think he's underpriced at least. He has to get you, what, 27, 28 points? That's something that this guy's been pretty much able to do handily since coming to this team over the past week. Maybe he's on a hot streak. Maybe he's going to start trending downwards, but I think you still ride a guy like Kelly Oubre out. Power forward position. So, power forward position on this slate, it's pretty loaded, right? Harrell, I think I'm going to stay away from Harrell. He's got a pretty good matchup, or a pretty bad matchup here against Jordan. Not sure he can, I'm sure he can handle that, but I'm not sure I want to throw that in there at $6,800. His price is slowly coming down. So in terms of ownership, Harrell's probably a really good play. Because of this, because his points are trending downward. His salary is starting to drop slowly. So it's a potential jump on Harrell spot here, and I think it's a pretty good one as well. Kawhi Leonard, if he plays, it's going to be tough for me to see where I want to go. If I go with Towns, it's going to be probably me trying to squeeze in Kawhi Leonard if I could squeeze 2 guys in there. If not, it's going to be maybe a Kawhi Leonard in a mid-range type lineup without a guy like Towns, which is dangerous. But I think Kawhi Leonard, he just has an unbelievable matchup against Sacramento. 11-point favorites, one of the highest total for a team on the slate. I like that a lot for Kawhi Leonard. I like that a lot for some of these other Toronto guys, like we'll get to, like a Siakam, like a Ibaka, who's really cheap at $5,900. And I'll jump to Ibaka, actually. At $5,900, if Leonard's off the floor, he's automatically inserted into my lineup due to his usage splits with Leonard on and off the floor. One of the biggest gaps besides Lowry on the team. It's the second biggest gap. And another guy who's seeing his salary just trend downward, right? We haven't seen him below 6K in I think a week or two now, and now it's there. And this guy's been a guy who's floating around that 6K range all year, so you can imagine that it's going to come back up. I think I jump on, and I like the position here for Serge Ibaka. Outside of that, if you want to talk about values, I mean, I'm fine playing TJ Warren based on his minutes. I'm fine playing a guy like Grant based on his price and his opportunities in that offense. But outside of that, it's probably a spend up for me at this position. Go down to a guy like Siakam. Potentially put Harris because there's a couple more small forward options I like. Guys like Oubre who are eligible there, Buddy Hield. So this could be a potential Leonard or Harris spot for me, not positive yet. Center, for me at least, is pretty straightforward. It's Towns, right? 28th against the center in Phoenix. They got a bunch of guys out. It's just a negative EV, expected value decision, if you don't play a guy like Towns here. If you play guys against third-string defenders and they're an elite player and the defense already sucks against that position, if you play those, you're probably going to end up making good decisions over the long term. It happened 2 nights ago. He went for over 60 points. At 10-6, he's going to have to get you 55 to 60 points for you to feel good about that play. I think he has that in him. If you don't want to go to Towns because of that, if you say, oh, I like Wiggins a little bit more and I want to play a Wiggins and a Teague lineup, and you don't want to have too much exposure to this team in this situation, which I think is fine, but I also think you can still get that exposure based on pace, based on game total, based on the spread of this game, not indicating any potential type of blowout at least. I think that you can still go there, but I understand if you want to kind of get off of Towns ownership-wise. I think there's some other options, right? I think the best option is a guy like DeAndre Jordan. DeAndre Jordan, elite matchup against the Clippers. Very elite matchup against the Clippers, actually. Clippers last in the league. We just said the Suns were 28th. Last in the league at defending the center. You can play that revenge game narrative here. He's at home. He's coming along as of late. He's getting back to his former self, and he's $6,400, right? He's cheap. We're talking about a guy who has to get you 35 points for you to feel really good. A guy who can get you 40 on any given night, and you'll feel absolutely incredible. The points and rebounds are starting to come back. He's getting his double-doubles back. I think DeAndre Jordan's an absolute smash play tonight based on matchup, based on price. You want to throw that revenge game narrative in there, you can as well. This was my first, if we don't count Christmas, real NBA slate of basketball that I kind of dissected. If you're still watching to this point, drop down below. Drop down below in the comments you're still watching. Let me know what you thought about my analysis on this. It's just, again, a first look for this slate. I'm hoping to get this video out there as soon as possible because my laptop takes forever to upload videos, and I wanted to get out there sometime before noon. It's 10-ish right now, 10:30. Getting it out there. Eventually, I'll get a desktop and I could stream these things, and once I hit end, it's done. You guys got all your information by 10:30, and we're good to go, right? We have a whole day to digest stuff. I can hop on Periscopes. That's my goal. That's something that I want to be able to do, but I need this channel to grow in order to do that. So if you could like this video, if you're still watching, subscribe. Said that like 5 times, meant to only say 3, but I mean it. So please subscribe if you can, if you are not already. It helps me immensely. This is the 22nd of January, I think, video, yeah, for NBA. So best of luck. It should be a fun slate. I kind of like 4-game slates. I like small game strategy. I'll be doing more strategy videos as well coming in the future, near future. Best of luck, everybody. My name's Sal. Peace.